Okay, now we are going to discuss the second task of assessment 2. Okay. Let's have a look at the tasks. Outline secondary and primary information that you need to collect to address your research objectives. Describe the research methods or techniques to collect the data. Right, now let's discuss about data. Okay. As this is one of the key elements of these assessments. All right, so based on who commences the research, data can be classified into primary data or secondary data. Okay, there are two groups of data that we talk about from based on who commences the research. Okay, primary data is basically generated by is generated to address specific issues, specific business problem. Okay, so that's primary data. Therefore, it is commenced by the marketing organization. And secondary data is basically generated by someone else. It is not customized. In the case of primary data, the primary data is customized. Secondary data has been established by someone else for different purpose. However, some of the information that we collect from secondary data research may help us understanding the problem better. Therefore, we can tighten our research questions better. Okay, this is a bit more information about primary data. It is generated from the research commenced by the marketing organization to address specific marketing issues. Therefore, the data have been customized. And please note, when we say comments by the marketing organization, it doesn't mean they conduct the research by themselves. They may assign a research agency to conduct the research. Okay, and normally primary research is quite expensive. Okay, because it is customized for you. Secondary data is generated from the research commenced by someone else or their organization. Therefore, data have been established. As a result, they are not customized to address specific marketing issues. So when you receive report from the Austrian Bureau of Statistics, for instance, you may like some information and you may want to reduce some other information, but you can't change them, okay? Because it is given based on their research. Now, a lot of them are available for free. So you can do your Google search, like the Austrian Bureau of Statistics, or you can Google the industry data, or you can talk to your accounting department to get the financial report. So you get them without paying more. Secondary data can be classified into two groups, internal and external. Right? Internal is basically or includes any data reports produced by the organization. That could be the financial report, right? You talk to your accounting department and you get their report. It could also be the customer complaint report or customer relationship management report that suggests who is our customer, what is their inquiries or feedback, for instance, or to find out what products that they purchased from our CRM data, customer relationship management. And the second one is external, which is basically about any data reports produced by the other organizations, such as government, journalists, or industry data, such as IBIS World Report. Now, I believe the IBIS World Report has been uploaded onto the OLS of this unit. Please make sure you download it because that helps you a lot with this subject. Okay, so when we plan our marketing research, which data that we need to collect first, primary or secondary data? Think about it and why. Right? Okay, what primary and secondary data do we need? Refer to the purpose of your data collection. Think about the data we need to achieve this purpose. Okay, so if we look at the elements of modern marketing system, we have, this is us, the company, we are the marketers. We try to convince our consumers to come on board. And in doing so, we need to work with our marketing intermediaries and also suppliers. At the same time, we also need to monitor our competitors. And on that on that note, we also need to consider there are some other forces which are basically major environmental forces that affect everybody. Okay, so in here we actually can research everything in here. Okay, in terms of primary and secondary data, right? Now, why do we research these elements? Because it is very likely that in today's marketing landscape, we adopt what we call as the customer-driven marketing strategy. Okay, experts also use that term, CDMS, customer-driven marketing strategy. Now, the customer-driven marketing strategy actually includes these three elements. Which customers are we servicing, which is basically about the target market decision. How can we service these customers best, which is basically what value proposition decision, and what philosophy that will guide our marketing efforts. Okay, so to understand these things, to understand these things better, we need to understand the market better, right? And in terms of understanding the market better, we need to understand each element of a modern marketing system through our marketing research. Okay, now in terms of research techniques or methods, we have two types of research techniques, qualitative and quantitative. Right, the qualitative research will generate words and opinions. Therefore, we normally probe them to explore. Okay, the popular techniques and the qualitative research techniques include FGD or focus group discussions, depth interview, and also observation. Okay. Contact method could be face-to-face and also online. In today's marketing landscape, we can also do online focus group discussion. Similar to a webinar where we have someone moderating the online discussion. Okay? And the next one is quantitative. The quantitative research technique will generate the statistical data like mean score and also percentage. So here the data will be presented in the format of numbers. We use quantitative because quantitative research helps us to validate, right? Why validate the information? Because it will normally include a large number of respondents, either 100 or maybe more. And survey, questionnaire are basically common techniques. Contact methods could be face-to-face, online, mail, and telephone. Okay. Right. If we look at those two techniques, qualitative and quantitative, which one that we need to conduct first? Well, based on the characteristics, normally we conduct the qualitative research first because we try to explore the issue. Qualitative research helps us understanding the issue better because when we probe the issue better, that helps us understanding it better. Okay, the qualitative research techniques helps us with open-ended questions instead of closed-ended questions in the quantitative research. Therefore, since the nature of research is using open-ended questions, we have the opportunity to probe, to elaborate the issues, to explore the issues further. Whilst quantitative, we normally use closed-ended questions like writing. We get the respondents to write in their opinion about customer satisfaction, for instance. Therefore, we normally use closed-ended. Okay, again, we normally use the qualitative to explore and quantitative to validate, but in some instances, companies may conduct quantitative first and qualitative later, right? But broadly speaking, I think it is fair to say that we normally explore the issue first and then we validate it in quantitative research, okay? Okay, so you can refer to this template to address the task 2. You outline the objectives, right, and what you want to know. And here you outline your primary research technique or method, and then the secondary resource search. What is the secondary resource search? Is that an Abyss World report, or is that an article that you find on Sydney Morning Herald, or the ABS report, for instance, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and so on and so forth. So you need to specify, you need to also outline specific data to be collected based on here. Okay. Now, in terms of primary research techniques or methods, one research objective in here the research objectives in here may share the same research techniques. In other words, from primary research techniques perspective, when we conduct the primary research, they may be designed to, or they may normally be designed to address all research objectives. Okay, let's say we have 3 research objectives, 1, 2, 3, and we plan to conduct focus group discussion from qualitative perspective. After that, we validate it using a survey, for instance. Both of them may be may normally be performed for to achieve the same research objectives. Research objectives 1, 2, and 3. Okay. All right, task 2C is basically about developing a sampling plan for primary data that you need to collect. Your sampling plan should include the respondent profile, a number of respondents or number of groups of respondents if it is about the focus group discussion or qualitative research, and procedure to select the respondents. Okay, so there are 3 decisions that you need to make in terms of sampling plan. A sampling plan always includes these 3 decisions: the respondent profile, number of respondents or number of groups in the qualitative research or focus group discussion, and procedure to select the respondents. Okay, now these areas in here will determine whether the information that we collect in the marketing research is valid or not, right? Whether they help us giving the correct information or not. Okay. This is one of the things I'd like to highlight to everybody, that when we conduct marketing research, we get the data after we conduct the marketing research. We believe that we have done research, so that research finding helps us justifying our action, our decision. Okay. But if we don't get the methodology correct, such as the sampling plan correct, then we are actually not getting the correct information. In other words, as people also say that garbage in, garbage out. Okay, and that is actually misleading in terms of our research finding. Okay. Research and describe a suitable software application to assist with the processing of the primary data that you collect. Okay, now let's talk about the first one here, the sampling plan. So we need to discuss about the sample unit, or that is actually the respondent profile. In terms of respondent profile, you actually need to look at the research objective. What is your objective? If your objective is actually about finding the perception of general consumers, then you ask general consumers, and you can conduct the random sampling procedure in terms of selecting the respondent in your survey. Okay? But if you want to find out your customer satisfaction, then it is about your customers. So you need to look at your target market specifically. Okay, if your target market is, for argument's sake, as a simple illustration, let's say from demographic perspective, your target market is, let's say, at the age of 25 to 50, then you are going to research the guys who are at the age of 25 to 50, and they claim to have used your products over the last, 2 or 3 periods, depending on the consumption level of your product category. Okay. The next one is sample size, which is basically the number of respondents, and lastly, the sampling procedure, which is basically about how the respondents are selected. Okay. Now, let's step back a little bit in terms of understanding what sample is about. Okay. sample is actually the representation of the population. Okay, if you look at that this diagram, if this is the entire population, let's say now show we have 20 to 23 million people, that's our population. And if we pick up a sample here, right, our sample is meant to represent the population, right? So the key word in sample is actually representation. All right, so we want to select the respondents that can represent the entire population. Okay. The reason why we do sample is basically you can't research the entire population, right? Unless you are doing census survey like the ABS, okay? You can't research the entire population, okay? It's similar probably to a blood test that we conduct on regular basis. You know, when we go to the lab, the laborant will take a sample of our blood to measure our glucose level in the blood, for instance, to measure cholesterol level in the blood, for instance. We are not getting the getting this guy to sample the entire blood. Okay, so that is the principle of sample. Okay, representation. We take a small part of the population that we think they will represent the entire population. Okay. All right. Just briefly about a story on the sampling activity. In the 1936 U.S. election, two polls were conducted. The first one was conducted by the Literary Digest. They had a million samples. Some articles suggest 2 million, the other articles suggest 3 million people as their sample, but anyway, 2-3 million people, okay? And the second poll was conducted by Gallup, 2,000 respondents, okay? And the candidates in the election at that time were Roosevelt and Al Landon. Okay. Now, this is again showing us that sample is not only about the number. Sample is actually about the principle of representation. Okay, and we know that American history suggests that Al Landon has never become the American president. Roosevelt was the winner. Okay, and at that time, based on the polling activity, Literary Digest predicted that Al Landon would be the winner in the election. Okay, but Gallup, with only 2,000 people in their sample, predicted that Roosevelt would win. And we know that the Roosevelt was the president of America if we refer to the American history. Okay, again, this is not about the number in terms of sampling. It is about the representation. Okay, right. So hopefully that gives you an idea how important is sample. Again, as mentioned before, sample is basically part of the methodology in our research plan. Therefore, if we get them wrong, we'll actually be trapped in a situation where garbage in, garbage out, and we don't want that in our marketing decision. Okay, now let's go back to the respondent profile. Okay, consider people who can help answer the questions, right? Refer to research questions and objectives, right? You think about your research objectives, research questions, okay? Who can help you answering the questions? If you talk about customer satisfaction, definitely you want to talk to someone who has ever used your product or service. If you want to talk about, general consumer behavior, because you want to understand, you want to monitor consumer behavior on regular basis, then you talk about general consumer. Then you may want to narrow down a bit more to those who have ever used any products in your industry, any brands in your industry. If you talk about biscuit, for instance, you also want to include your competitors' brands in that aspect. Okay, this could be your target market is your starting point. It is your target market would be a good starting point to think about. Okay, it could be the possible customers, including non-target market. So if you want to research, if your research objective suggests that well, hang on a second, I try to understand why why there are some other people who never buy my product, then you are actually talking about non-users, right? Non-users of your brand. Let's say when you interview someone, let's say Robert claims that yes, I've ever used your brand and I'm still using your brand, then Robert is not qualified to help you in your research. Okay, you need to find another person. Let's say you get John. John claims, no, I've never used your brand, I know your brand, then John is qualified in this instance. So in real life, you also need to outline the criteria for those who can become your respondent. Okay. And the next thing is number of people or number of groups. In the case of focus group discussion, number of things that we need to consider, such as budget consideration. How big is our budget? Obviously, the larger the sample or the larger the group, the larger the number of the groups that you want to conduct would imply that the higher of the budget that you need to prepare. And you also need to refer to the respondent profile that we discussed before, whether they are easy or not to find, or and also whether your product category is actually has high penetration in the market, so you can find them easily. And each respondent profile normally involves 2 groups, again depending on the budget. Let's say if you split your respondent into 15 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, for instance, you may want to include 2 groups for each brackets. Okay, so that's as a rule of thumb. Why 2 groups? Because we can compare their opinions. Okay, but again, it also goes back to the budget consideration that you have in your pocket. Now, as mentioned to you before, marketers seldom make decision from qualitative study, because qualitative study only includes small number of people. Therefore, marketers would normally conduct the quantitative study as well. Okay, and one of the popular methods in the quantitative study is survey. Okay, so again, we also need to consider the budget consideration, how many people that we need to include, how many respondents that we need to survey. There are several methods in here. The first one is arbitrary decision, which is normally 100 plus. Let's say you pick up, okay, I just want to do 125 or 150 people. Okay, I just want to survey 150 people, for instance. That goes back to your number of respondent. And normally it is related to the budget that you have as well. And the next thing, which is actually recommended, is statistical method to make decision about the number of respondents. Now, in the statistical method, we consider the confidence level. Okay, the level of confidence. All right. Here we have 3 of them. To be 90% confident, for instance, the sample size would follow this formula. Okay, you can calculate it. Then there you go. Bang! You get the formula. Okay, you get the number of respondents that you need to research to get the to be 95% confident. That's another equation, and to be 99% respondent, you expect a higher number of respondents, because the confidence level in here would be higher than that. Okay, where n is the size of the sample, or number of people that that we need to include in our research. D is the margin of error of the estimate. Okay, and then the sampling procedure. okay, which is basically about the probability and non-probability. We only have two types of sampling procedure, whether it is probability or non-probability. In the case of probability, every member in the population has the opportunity to be selected as respondent. Non-probability is basically based on personal judgment or convenience, and therefore it is not following the statistical rules. Therefore, we can't measure the confidence level or margin of error. Okay, this slide shows briefly the probability techniques. We have the simple random sampling, for instance, where each element in the population has equal opportunity. Okay, if we look at, for instance, if we zoom into one specific geographic area, such as Sydney, for instance, we can everyone lives in Sydney. As long as they fall into the criteria of our respondent profile, they have the chance to be selected as our respondent. The next two, stratified and cluster sampling, are basically sound similar, but they have some differences actually. In the case of stratified sampling, we select the sample on random basis as well after we create the stratum. Okay, so here we create the stratum based on, for instance, age group or lifestyle, age group or any other demographic profile group, and after that, from each age group, we select the sample on random basis. Now, the purpose of stratified sampling is to improve the accuracy of our sampling. Therefore, it is normally more expensive. Now, the next one is cluster sampling. Random sample is selected after the cluster is established. Now, the clustering here includes the blocks normally, right? So if you look at Sydney again, for instance, you may want to split Sydney into several areas, such as northern Sydney, southern Sydney, western Sydney, and eastern suburb, for instance. And after that, you pick up the samples according to those blocks. Okay. The purpose of cluster sampling is to save costs. Okay, because of that, because we select them based on the blocks, that helps us to reduce the cost. The next one is the non-probability, that includes convenience sample, judgment sample, and quota sample. So they are not non-probability, so you can't measure the error margin of error. And this one here, the snowball sampling technique, is also part of the non-probability technique. Here we ask one respondent, and after we complete the interview with this respondent, we ask this respondent, who else can we talk to? Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, we normally do snowball sampling technique if the respondent that we want to find is not easy to find. Okay, it is not easy to define. Let's say if you want to interview those who have the experience of traveling to the North Pole, for instance. Once we get someone, let's say John Robertson, we interview John Robertson, and at the end of the interview, ask John, hey John, do you mind if we ask who else can we talk to about this? Okay, and John makes a recommendation, let's say Jane, so we talk to Jane, okay, and so on and so forth. That's what we mean by snowball sampling technique. All right, guys, please stay tuned. We are going to discuss the assessment to task 3.